Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so excited today to be joined by the fantastic Evan Peters to talk all about the HBO series Mare of Easttown. And the first thing I was really interested in is you actually had the opportunity to connect with and email with the real life detective that Mare is based on.
Yeah,
And I know that she gave you a lot of information and a lot of text and book recommendations and
yeah,
was very interested in how that led into your character development process because it was both about the psyche and the day to day of what he's experiencing and the types of things that he's exposed to through his work, but then also some of the more procedural elements like, how do you process a crime scene? What is the questioning actually like in the day to day? And so, how did that really help you flesh out all of those different aspects of him?
yeah. I think it really helped. I mean, she gave me a lot of Netflix crime shows to watch, and that book, Sex Related Homicide and Death Investigation, which was really very very dark and had a lot of very graphic pictures and descriptions and all these things that you can't really get out of your mind. And I was curious what that would do to me if I was looking at that and reading about that on a day-to-day basis, and how that would sort of affect me and make me look at the world differently in terms of seeing the sort of underbelly and dark side every day. What that would kind of do to me, and make you look at people differently. And really appreciate the beauty as well, much more than if you hadn't been looking at that stuff. So I found that really helpful, and also it was fascinating to read all the things that you have to think about and go through, and the paperwork and ballistics and all these things that you're thinking about once you get onto a crime scene. So it was just all these different questions to be asking yourself, and asking the witnesses, and looking at the crime scene and sort of scoping it all out in a very, Sherlock Holmes type of way, where you're trying to look at all the little details that make up the crime scene and sort of backtrack. So just doing that, putting that in my brain was very helpful in terms of just getting stuff to think about when you're on set in these crime scenes. And, even looking at the Aaron at the ME's office, trying to sort of figure out all these little details, and what they mean, and who could be involved. So it was just helpful to put that into my brain and get me into the headspace of trying to be a detective, and what you deal with. So yeah, it was very helpful.
And obviously, one of the hugely impressive parts of everybody's performances on the show is the dialect and the accent. And there's not a single person that didn't completely nail it. And so I was interested in your collaboration with Suzanne, the dialect coach on the show, because it wasn't just the work that the two of you did together, but there was a specific guy where she found a lot of footage or audio of him talking that played a lot into your dialect and the dialogue that you ended up delivering in the show. And what was it so specifically about this one person's accent? And then what was that journey of finding a lot of the nuances, particularly with the vowels, because that's the place where you can slip up the easiest.
Yeah, she Suzanne supplied several different audio clips of different people with different, you know, uh, levels of the accent. There were some pretty extreme ones, there were some very mild ones, and Steve Baylor was sort of right in the middle there. And what I really liked about Steve is that he was just kind of a really nice guy. He had his mom's planet, he had a family, he had his kids. Oh, my wife is a pistol. She is just a pistol. And like it really, I like that idea for Zabel. He's sort of this kind of lovable, kind of likable, a little bit of a. I'm trying to think of the right word. Um, uh, he planted mums on Saturday, so it's like he's an everyday sort of man, and I felt like Steve was very very relatable, and I wanted to sort of get that same pitch and tone, and not make him too sure of himself. I felt like Steve as a detective would be an interesting uh, juxtaposition to Mare, and how sort of stern and clipped she is. So I really like Steve for that, and I would listen to that every morning, and we became pals. He didn't know it, but we certainly did, and I knew him very well. And we still actually text every now and again. But yeah, I listen to that every day. And then the pandemic hit, and I thought, oh my God, I have to keep listening to Steve for another 6 months, and I did. I narrowed it down to like 2 times a week or something like that, and then when we picked back up, I started listening to it every morning, just because I was so scared to lose it. It's a really, really strange accent, and I've never heard anything like it. I didn't even know it existed before I started working on the show. So I really wanted to. And me personally, I feel like if I'm around somebody long enough, I start to talk like them. And I think a lot of people, if they're in a city or a town long enough, they start to bring on some of those traits. So I just figured if I keep listening to it, it'll kind of get into my subconscious somehow and just kind of stay in there. And if I stop, I think it'll go away. So I wanted to keep doing that every morning to make sure that I had it. And Suzanne was great. You know, she was there every day and very helpful. And we worked together on sort of different levels to play with as well in certain scenes. So especially the bar scene where, you know, when you're drunk or emotional, these things tend to come on stronger, you know. So we wanted to play with that a little bit too. But it was a fun accent. It was very strange and very funny at times. You know, it's hard sometimes to. I mean, the SNL skit kind of did it beautifully. It's really a funny accent at certain times, and it's hard to take it seriously. So it's a tricky one when you're doing a drama. But I found that the levity of it was sort of helpful for Zabel in a way, I thought.
And speaking of the juxtapositions between Zabel and Mare, one of the aspects that's really enjoyable to watch between you and Kate, and particularly in those early scenes, is the energy that you come in with and then the necessity to keep pulling it back. So like he comes in and he's like, "Good morning, I bought you coffee," and then just gets absolutely nothing in return and then has to almost recalibrate himself, but he still keeps coming forth in every moment. And so how did you navigate figuring out the way in which you wanted him to come in, the energy that you wanted him to give, and then the way that you wanted him to consistently walk it back based on her responses?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's hard because and I found it really funny that Zabel comes in hot. You know, he's like, really, okay, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be great. You know, teamwork. And she's like, I hate you and I don't want you here. So he's like struggling with that. You're absolutely right. It does take a certain amount of recalibrating. But I think eventually it sort of, you know, whittles her down and makes sure that she you know, is, you know, he then becomes sort of an acquired taste. You know, I think he has to pull it back and then sort of, then he can sprinkle in his little things to try to make it a team endeavor. I really think he needs Mare so badly in this case to solve this thing, because she is such a better detective. So he's like, is there any way that we could really work together, because I need this. And I think you're better than me, so I would love to learn from you. And I'm here. I can be quiet. I can shut up. I can do whatever you want. I just really want to work together on this, and you know, find out what happened to those girls. So I really like that arc. I always found it very funny that she doesn't want him there. And that scene in the car when she slams on the gas and he like goes forward on the dash. I think we really liked that moment, and I think we sort of tried to play that up a little bit in the beginning scenes, because it was just a little bit of levity, you know, that in a very sort of dark, gray show, you know. So yeah, I you know, that was a fun thing to play for sure.
And I love that you're bringing up the fact that he is a good detective, but he knows that there's something very special about Mare and the way that she reads information and processes and just won't let her brain slow down at any point. Because that comes into play in so many aspects. And even when the two of you are questioning people, he's always standing just a little bit behind her and letting her take the lead. When they're questioning, the majority of the dialogue is on her. And there were even, it sounds like, a couple of moments where there were questions that he was going to ask that actually the two of you shifted over for her to bring forth as well, because it made more sense with the dynamic of the scene. And so between just the physical blocking of a lot of scenes and the dialogue delivery, how did the two of you work to set that up so consistently throughout the show?
I think it was on a scene by scene basis. We really, I mean, specifically that scene with the deacon. You know, it was originally scripted that Zabel asked for his phone, and I felt in the rehearsal I was like, I just don't know how to play this. This feels so forced or wrong, or I'm not sure what it is. And that was all to myself. And then Kate kind of walked up to me. She goes, "Hey, like, can I take that? Can I do the phone thing?" And I was like, "It's yours. You take it. It is yours. It's going to work so much better. And then I can look at you and be like, oh, why didn't I think of that? I should have done that. I don't think he's a bad detective. I just think he really wants her to take the lead, and he really wants to learn from her. Yeah, it was really on a scene by scene basis. There was one I wanted to find the Winstons. I wanted to clock the Winston cigarettes. I think it was originally scripted that Mare does that, or we were sort of playing with it in rehearsal and what works best. And I was like, you know what, and I walked up to Kate and I was like, "Kate, can I find the Winstons?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's yours. Yeah, you take it." And I was like, "Okay, great." So for me, and what I was trying to do is Zabel, I was like, he keeps kind of fumbling. He's doing all right. He's doing okay. He's got a few wins here and there, but that one to me was really the one where it's like, I did it. I found the guy, the Winstons. I connected the dots. I did it all. I did that. So I was really, Zabel was very proud in that moment, I was thankful that Kate let me do that one, because I really felt like that was an important one for Zabel.
You're like, I gave you that line, now you give me this.
Yeah.
And I think it is so interesting when you look at the character and the way that he's built up in that arc before the death, because the way the audiences connect to him would not have been the same if the character was as he was originally written. And it's not even that he was originally written as a hotshot who's overcompensating for his imposter syndrome in an early draft. It's the fact that that was the initial development that you were doing, and even down to taking professional pool lessons so that he would have things that he could show off. What was the tipping point and the moment that everybody realized that by shifting the character and making it that he allows himself to lean into the vulnerability was kind of the magic source of him as a character, and what was going to completely change his whole arc?
I think it was this, for me, it was a scene where I went to pick up Mare for the date. And I just felt, and we sort of shot that a little earlier on, and it was really funny how she was very clipped and quick, and how she normally is, and I felt very much like I just felt a little bumbling and fumbling, and I think I tripped over a step, and I didn't do something with the door right, and I just felt very fumbly, and I thought, well, I don't know. I just don't know that works. I don't really want him to be, we want people to be shocked when he dies, and not sort of grateful that he's gone. We really want them to sort of like him and be rooting for him. So I felt like, just the idea that he was, to be good at pool would be cool, but I didn't think it worked well for that scene. And also he's drunk, so I don't know how well he was doing these trick shots, but it really just felt like it was in that scene. It felt like he was just a little bit more of a goofball. And Mare, and again, it kind of ties into that scene where she reverses and he slams forward, and we just felt like, okay, maybe it's not that he's overconfident. Maybe it's that he's not confident enough. Maybe he's really kind of insecure, and this thing is kind of eating away at him and chipping away at his confidence. He's not a bad detective. He's a good detective. It's just this thing that he did is making him feel like an imposter. So it's chipping away at him and sort of affecting how he moves, and he can't quite, do things smoothly, and he's fumbling, and so we felt like that was maybe more the right choice for Zabel, so that the ending would be a little bit more shocking and kind of heartbreaking, to see him so close to getting it, and then he didn't. So.
And you mentioned there the comedy, and in particular, I feel like you're the one that's able to bring so many of those moments, whether it's when he realizes that saying nightmare is like nightmare, or even pitching to her the idea of you're the chef and I'm the sous chef. So how did you set about finding what the right tone and the right delivery of comedy was going to be that was going to bring us just enough out of a lot of the heaviness, but not pull the audience out too far to the point where then it would be a little bit too much of a switch and bait to then go back to that immediately?
Yeah, we always kind of, I did that in the audition tape. I was like good nightmare, and I was like, oh, that sounds like I'm saying have a good nightmare, nightmare, and I kind of played around with that a little bit, and And Brad really liked that, and he said, I think we should maybe sort of try to sprinkle in a little of that stuff for Zabel. And I was really excited by that. I thought, oh, that'll be fun to kind of play around and improvise and write stuff down and stuff like that. So, yeah, for that, yeah, for this, you're the sous chef, you're the chef, I'm the sous chef. I just, again, that was sort of playing around, writing stuff down, and then on the day trying it out. And we did a couple with it and a couple without it. And we ended up using it, so that's good. But yeah, it was really just sort of, that was up to Craig, and the editors. We just, on a day, we just wanted to play around as much as we could and try to give them as much as we could, so that they had some options to play around with. And I wasn't sure what the overall tone of the whole thing was going to be, so that was sort of up to them to do that. But super fun to play around and joke around with Kate Winslet of all people. So that was pretty incredible.
I also enjoy the fact that with a character like yours, most of the time when we would see that character, we wouldn't know anything beyond the law enforcement side, but we do get to see his home life. We get to see the fact that he's living with his mom. And in particular, once it's revealed that he was supposed to be married, that wasn't his initial plan. That also tells you a lot about his dynamic with his mom and the relationship and the rapport that they have. So how did having that on screen really help you in terms of building out a lot of his backstory and his relationship dynamics? And again, in particular, a lot of that vulnerability, because his life isn't where he was actually trying to put himself.
Yeah, I think it was immensely helpful. I love the idea that you get to see that he doesn't really have it all together. He's sort of floundering and trying to better himself and trying to get out of this hole. And it sort of makes sense that he would take, the bit of evidence that the PI got, and sort of take it as his own, because he feels so set back, as he's trying to get ahead. He's trying to get out of the hole. He's trying to move out of his mom's place. There's a lot that he's trying to move forward from, but he just sort of feels stuck. And I think it was very helpful to see that. And it was also great working with my mom. I felt like that was it was nice to sort of flesh out some of that dynamic and make it, there's always expectations of your parents as well that really weigh heavily on you. And I think, his mother, with the newspaper clipping in her house with him, discovering this and solving this case, just adds fuel to the fire and sort of, keeps that gnawing away at his inside going. So I thought it was very helpful to sort of create that dynamic, for sure.
And within his arc as well, he starts developing a little bit more of a sense of self-worth and self-validation as it goes on, and taking, just tiny flecks from his interactions with Mare, such as the moment where they're out on a date and he shuts it down and calls it out for the fact that all she did was take him out so that she could talk about the case, or even the fact that he kisses her near the end, which he wouldn't have done earlier on. And so what were the ways in which you were thinking about how their time together and how that dynamic would start to seep into him and give him a little bit more of self-agency?
Yeah, that was hard. That was really hard to trickle in there and sort of play with those levels. I kept looking at, all the scripts and looking at the arc and sort of planning out, when is he feeling more and more confident? And with Haskins, it's he sort of brings him back down. It's like at that point, he's just when he's getting back on his feet with Mare, she's gone. And then this guy who was a jerk to him, in the academy is now back and sort of regressing him, so then it kind of goes down a little bit. And then, he sort of has the win with the deacon and that scene. So he feels a little bit more confident stepping out there. And then I think he has the goal to ask out Mare on the date. So, I think by the end, when he kisses her, I really wanted it to be like, okay, I feel like I've got my self-confidence back. I've got my self-worth back. I feel like I can, do this, and you're helping me so much. I mean, for me, like the whole story arc that I was most focused on was Mare. It was solving the case, but that was secondary to sort of Mare helping me, or Zabel, become more whole as a person. And there's something about her and her confidence and her instinct and her beauty and all these things that, how love is. It pulls you out of so many different things, that are wrong in your life. And you start to see birds and they sing and the colors and all these things. So I really, we didn't want it to be like, oh, he's seeing like hearts float off of her, but there is something that she does to him that makes him feel much better about his situation and his life. And, everybody has their problems and faults, and it's not ever going to be what you thought it was going to be, but it's just maybe enough and just right for you. So, I really like the idea that she pulls him out of that. And I listened to John Mayer New Light every day on the way to work, along with listening to Steve, because it put me in the mindset of really liking this person, but being a little like, how do I crack this mold? And like, I kind of want to be more than a friend, but I don't know, is that going to work? I'm not sure. So it set the tone and it set the mood for sort of wanting a little bit more and an admiration for her. And also, I think he says, 40 in the friend zone. So it's like, he's at a certain age and he wishes he could be somewhere different, but he's sort of stuck in the friend zone. So it was helpful to listen to that. But again, it was all about Mare. It really, I felt for Zabel. So.
And it would be remiss not to talk about the infamous drunken bar scene, and especially because performance-wise, playing drunk is so underestimated in the level and the detail of skill that goes into that. It's everything from the physical movement. It's exactly what you were saying earlier about it changes his dialect, his accent comes out a little bit stronger, the glassiness of the eyes, and then the fact that there's a lot of different moments and rhythms to how he's drunk. It's, oh, I just revealed something I shouldn't have, oh shit. There's kind of the coy smile moment. Yeah. And all those different dynamics that come into play. And I know that part of your process as well was drinking apple cider vinegar for a really sensory experience to kind of trigger your brain as well. Yeah. And so when you started shooting that scene, what was that journey of really finding all of those specific beats, especially once you made that choice of he has to be completely inebriated for this to be the dynamic that we want?
Yeah, we wanted him to be shit can, for lack of a better term. I felt like it was, and I talked with Craig in the beginning about, it's so strange to see this guy who's sort of kind of docile be so drunk at a bar and sort of out of nowhere. And I felt like that helped sort of sell that he was holding a secret and that was sort of eating away at him. And obviously that his life isn't where he wanted it to be. I made a lot of notes and my script was destroyed by the end of that. I couldn't even discern what I had written and all sorts of different things and things to improvise and play around with. And Kate was awesome. And we played around with the dialogue a lot on that day. And, there was space and time to sort of feel things and go through the motions and the ins and outs. And, it was a combo of sort of my brother, shout out to my brother, Andrew. He when he gets drunk, he's one of the funniest. It's because he's a very sort of quiet, sort of sarcastic, dry person. And then when he gets drunk, he's one of the most hilarious dancers. He's so funny and out there and sarcastic. And so I really tried to channel. It was a combo of me and him, but mostly him when he gets drunk. So I was really thinking back on the good old days when we'd be going out. And yeah, I mean, you're in the setting. So, and you got your Rolling Rock and your shot of apple cider vinegar, which sort of helps with the, it's so hard after you take a shot of colored water to sort of be like, I just took a shot, so that it just gives you something to work off of. But I was really upset after I shot that scene. I really thought, because I set out to sort of, there was the level at which he was upset with his situation in his life was not quite in the script, and I really wanted him to be torn up, about about his situation with his ex and the case and his life, and it's just sort of everybody sort of feels that feeling of not being where you thought you would be in your life at a certain age, and so I wanted to make that really hit, and I didn't. I felt like I didn't get it. I was really destroyed after that scene, and I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I always try to go out and do something, I can never do it, and whatnot. And Craig was really sweet and gave me a big hug and was like, "Oh yeah, I think we got it." I'm like, "Okay, all right, I don't know." And then I saw it and I thought, "Oh, okay, I did. I guess I did get that. Okay, that's good." Um, I don't know what that means about my internal barometer, which is a little scary, but yeah, it was. I don't know. I wanted to make it dark and sort of sad but have that sarcasm and sort of silliness of my brother, because I mean, you know how it is when you get drunk. It takes a 180 and you don't even expect it to. You start getting emotional, or you get angry, or you get interested in somebody, or whatever it is. It's like, so it's sort of an unpredictable roller coaster. So I wanted to try to bring that too. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, we shot it at like 8 or 9 in the morning, so it was like a little very strange to sort of dive into that bar scene, and that whole vibe that early in the morning. But again, Kate was awesome, super super gracious, and we improvised a lot and played around with it. So yeah, it was fun. It was definitely a fun scene to shoot.
And you were mentioning there the notes that you were making on your script for that scene. And obviously, the majority of projects always film out of sequence. But with this, it was every episode being shot out of sequence all at once, like a giant, very, very long movie. And I know that Kate even had massive binders full of notes for herself for tracking a lot of the beats for Mare. And so for you, were the notes that you were taking and the types of things that you were annotating for yourself much more meticulous and a little bit different to what you would normally do on a project, given the volume of what you were trying to capture?
Yeah, that arc of him and his self-confidence sort of growing was a very hard one to track. Sort of the growing attraction to Mare was a hard one to track, because since a lot of our scenes are mostly just detective work, so it's kind of interesting to be getting more interested in somebody as you're working. So it was kind of it was hard to track that for sure. I make a lot of like writing things and line additions and improvisations and sort of things like that in the script, which are totally befuddled and confusing. I can't even read it by the end. But yeah, it's. I feel like Kate had so much more to track. She had so much more. Yeah, like injuries and all sorts of things. She's incredible. The show is fantastic. She was just so great in that. Um, but yeah, yeah, it was hard to do. I think I was in 4 episodes. Yeah, four episodes. But because we block shot it, it was basically like I was there for 7. So it's kind of a lot of time in the hotel room watching First 48 and Silence of the Lambs. Felt like that was a good reference too as well. I really like watching that to sort of get in the headspace of the show.
And then I wanted to talk about the scene where he ends up getting shot, because there's that moment of inflection that you see in your eyes when he realizes exactly what's happening. He's tried to go for the draw two and he's realized that he's not quick enough and he knows exactly what's coming. But it's all within a hair of a second that all of that comes forth. And then there's also the physical element of how is he going to fall, making sure it's believable in response to the injury that he's sustaining. And was that something where you all had a sense of the timing and the flow of that scene very quickly, or was it something where you ended up playing around with it a little bit?
Um, that was a strange one. It all kind of just came together. We rehearsed it on a Saturday, and we didn't really sort of. I mean, we talked a little bit about how I was going to get shot and maybe hit the door. We wanted him to fall into the kitchen, and how are they going to do that? Or pad me up, and it was CG. They did do a practical effect where they shot blood on the wall. But I wasn't in that. I was sort of a separate shot, and then they CGI'd kind of the rest of it. So it was all, none of it was, sometimes they'll do it. I guess they can't really do a squib on your forehead. But maybe they'll draw something, and they ended up, after I was down, putting a mark there. But it was mostly the tricky one with that scene was sort of the timing of it all. And Craig sort of wanted to stretch out time in a good, the bad, and the ugly kind of way, where it's like everybody's staring everybody down. When we were shooting it, it felt very long and very awkward. Like, what? I feel like we should be doing something. This is crazy. But on film, they cut it and edited it, and it looks great. But yeah, it was a little confusing in the moment to sort of be like, and the timing of it all, and the pipe. We kind of had to work out when he was going to draw Wayne Potts, and what that was going to be like, and what happens. I mean, I ended up being distracted by Mare saying, like, okay, the pipe, and then he draws, and by that time it's too late, and then I just kind of did a quick shot in the head kind of body movement thing, and all edited together, and CGI'd, and with a little bit of practical, it all kind of came together. But yeah, finding those Winstons. I found the Winstons. That was another thing too. It was like clocking her, clocking him, clocking the Winstons, the security cameras. Okay, it was really, that's really what the hard part of that scene was. And then it's sort of just the shocking moment of not being quick enough to draw. Abel's got to work on a quick draw for sure.
Well, I've heard that on set, you and Kate just kept saying "poor Zabes" in reference to all the things that happened to him throughout.
It really is, yeah, of course. I can't get it right. Can't do it. Poor guy.
I know. I feel like I wanna end our conversation by fully concurring that I agree with poor Zabes. And thank you so much, Evan, for sharing all of this.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you talking to us Sunday.